When sport flying returns, preservation of a different era, the Russian-built Mig-17. Sport flying caught up with one of the more visible Mig-17s still flying today, some 47 years after its introduction. This fresco is known as Mr. Mig. Its owner and pilot is the very proud Jim Rossi.
Well, the Mig-17 is a great airplane. It also has a lot of history. It came out just after the Korean War. It was an offshoot of the Mig-15, which battled our Sabres. The airplane was used extensively in Vietnam, although it was dated by the MiG-21. The North Vietnamese pilots preferred the Mig-17 over the MiG-21 because it was more maneuverable, and for an airplane of this vintage, was very reliable and did a very good job for them, unfortunately for us.
Now, Jim and Mr. Mig don't just take off and land. They put on quite an aerobatic show.
Why am I doing aerobatics in it? Well, it's like any of these historic warbirds, Mustangs, Corsairs. It's a part of our history. Enemy or friend or foe, it's definitely a part of our history. And we've got the opportunity to take this airplane around the country and show it to people. I get a big thrill out of talking to veterans from Vietnam that come up to me and say the last time they saw one of these, it was behind them in their rearview mirror firing big orange balls at them. So it's a pretty interesting experience. Well, aerobatics are really just a means to an end. Jet aerobatics, like any other aerobatics in air-to-air combat, is just a way to maneuver against your opponent. Basically, what I'm doing with Mr. Mig, and by the way, let me emphasize that Mr. Mig is the airplane, and I'm Rossi. A lot of people call me Mr. Mig, but we named the airplane Mr. Mig, and I think it deserves the title Mr. Mig. And we take it around the country and we demonstrate what it can do. And for an airplane of this vintage, 40 years old, it does some remarkable things. It has a very efficient afterburner and does some spectacular maneuvers that you don't see in airplanes from the 1950s generally.
Being built in the protective and secret Soviet Union almost 50 years ago, one has to wonder, how do you keep this respected enemy jet flying?
Well, there are parts available. It's like a lot of our stuff over here. There is an abundance of parts. So there are a couple of gentlemen around the country who made trips over to the Eastern Bloc and have brought back parts. I made 7 trips to Poland in 1996 and 97, and I've brought back engines, brakes, wheels. So we have a pretty good spare inventory, including a complete another aircraft that is in the air and flying, which we use as our backup aircraft.
Jim's biggest concern is shared by the airshow industry, warbird enthusiasts, and now jet warbird fans: safety.
I belong to the Classic Jet Aircraft Association, the CJAA, and our purpose and goal is to maintain safety standards and training for new people coming up. Not everyone that flies these things learn to fly them in the military. We have a convention once a year. We have seminars, safety seminars. We go through military altitude chambers. And hopefully if we keep this attitude and we go along in this direction, that we'll be able to fly these things indefinitely.